Hello, so this is Drug in Perspective. Chapter 8, Motivation and Change. This chapter explores motivations and stages of change, and the ways each relates to alcohol and drug recovery and relapse prevention. It's important to understand the kinds of change that can occur, the determinants of change and the stages of change, and what influences them. Motivation and drive, as well as relapse prevention strategies, are necessary to stop drinking alcohol and doing drugs. These issues are worth our focus, and I believe they will be studied even more in the future to better understand and treat individuals with substance abuse disorders. The whole subject of change is fascinating and complicated. People change for very personal and individual reasons. Many people can go years, even a lifetime, wanting to change, intending to change, even verbalizing a desire to change, without acting necessarily to change. Why will any given person stop drinking or taking drugs, eat healthier, exercise regularly, commit to a task, pursue a passion, or get out of an imbalanced situation or relationship? The answer is different for each person. Some people will put up with a lot of things before being forced to make change. Others will make difficult changes despite tremendous obstacles, risk, and personal sacrifice. Some people stop using because the negative cycle and negative consequences have gone on for too long. They decide they are sick and tired of being sick and tired. So this is an image I've used in other videos that I really like for the stages of change. So you have 1, pre-contemplation, not yet considering change or is unwilling. Primary task is raising awareness. Contemplation sees the positivity of change but is ambivalent and uncertain. Primary task, resolving ambivalence and helping to choose change. Determination, definition, commitment to changing but was still considering what to do. Primary task, help identify appropriate change strategies. 4, definition, taking steps toward change but hasn't stabilized in the change process. Primary task, help implement change strategies and learn to eliminate potential relapses. 5, maintenance, has achieved the goals and is working to maintain the change. Primary task here is to develop new skills for maintaining recovery. And then finally 6, recurrence or relapse. Definition, experience a recurrence of the problems. Primary task, cope with consequences and determine what to do next.
Defense mechanisms are the brain's way of keeping us safe from being fully aware of unpleasant thoughts and feelings. Sometimes, we can choose to use certain defense mechanisms like repression, denial, and rationalization. Below is a list of 10 of the most common defense mechanisms. 1. Displacement. The diversion of emotions, such as anger, from the original source to a substitute target. For example, your friend says something hurtful, and instead of confronting your friend, you later lash out at your sister. 2. Projection. The projection of one's own feelings, thoughts, or motives onto someone else. For example, a person who is cheating is under the impression that their partner is cheating on them. 3. Rationalization. Developing false, though plausible excuses to justify irrational and/or unacceptable behavior. For example, stealing from a corporate chain store, such as Best Buy, and justifying the theft by saying, they make millions in profit, so it doesn't matter. 4. Reaction formation. Behaving in a way opposite to how you feel. For example, when a person is romantically attracted to someone, but adamantly claims that they dislike the someone. 5. Regression. Reverting to childlike patterns of behavior. For example, A student gets a bad grade on their test and screams and cries at their parents or teacher. 6. Repression Denial. Pushing or burying thoughts and feelings that are distressing into the subconscious. For example, an addict will deny they have an addiction because they can function fine at work and at home. An example of repression would be a person who witnesses a crime being unable to remember the event. 7. Sublimation. The refocusing of unacceptable impulses, thoughts, and/or emotions into more acceptable ones. For example, a person who is experiencing aggressive impulses instead challenges that energy into rigorous exercise. 8. Dissociation. The detachment from reality and from oneself, and the finding of another representation of self to cope with extreme stress or conflict. A person who uses dissociation as a defense mechanism disconnects from reality and lives in their own world, in which they do not experience unbearable thoughts, feelings, or memories for a period of time. 9. Intellectualization. Overthinking and the misdirection of focus when confronted with unacceptable situations, behaviors, or impulses. For example, a person who has been told a close family member has died begins to focus on and overthinks the details of planning a funeral, etc., instead of expressing their grief. 10. Compensation. The counterbalancing of perceived flaws or weaknesses by instead emphasizing strengths. For example, a person says they can't draw, but they're really good at dancing. What defense mechanisms do you use? Share your thoughts with us below. Also, don't forget to subscribe and check out our Patreon. Thanks for watching!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this brief introduction to motivational interviewing. I'm Dr. Bill Matulich, a clinical psychologist, a motivational interviewing trainer, and the author of the ebook, How to Do Motivational Interviewing, which is available, as they say, wherever fine ebooks are sold. So today I just want to share with you a brief slide presentation outlining the basic concepts of motivational interviewing for you. And the best place to start, I guess, is with a definition. So here's my definition of motivational interviewing. Motivational interviewing is an effective way of talking with people about change. So this is a simple definition. It's not as technical as a textbook definition, but I think it'll suffice for the simple introduction to motivational interviewing that I'm outlining for you on these slides. So what do I mean by effective? I mean that it's evidence-based, that motivational interviewing has about 1,200 publications or more in all kinds of prestigious journals, covering motivational interviewing's use in a wide variety of problem areas, professional settings, and actually many different countries as well. So why is it even necessary to have something like motivational interviewing? Shouldn't people just naturally change their behavior when they know how important it is for them to change? Well, common practice would certainly suggest that this is the case. Oftentimes, counselors will just give people information or advice and expect them to change their behavior. But professional counselors, change agents of one kind or another, know that change is not quick and easy. In fact, sometimes change is very slow and difficult. So what kind of changes am I talking about? Well, people face many decisions that require some sort of change at every stage of life. Children need to decide whether or not to do their homework, for example. People make career decisions and who to marry, how many children to have, when to have children, things like that. Later in life, difficult decisions include things like medical decisions, retirement, living alone or moving into a retirement home or senior living, for example, or sometimes just accepting help. People who have been used to being independent all their lives may have a difficult time making the change to just accepting the help that they need. But as I've mentioned before, these decisions to change are often very difficult. Occasionally, I'll ask my workshop students, for example, how long it was between the time that they knew that they had to make a significant change in their lives and the point at which they actually made the change. It doesn't surprise me anymore that many people say that it took 6 months or longer to actually make the change. So when change is hard, it's usually not because, or it's often not because, of lack of information or laziness or oppositional personality or denial or resistance or any of those kinds of things. Sometimes it is, a matter of lack of information. The person is already motivated and just needs some information. But oftentimes it's because it's a motivational issue. And when change is hard, it's sometimes because people are ambivalent. They're stuck in an ambivalent stage. And now ambivalence is just wanting and not wanting the change or wanting incompatible things at the same time. The problem with ambivalence is that it's uncomfortable. It leads to anxiety or produces anxiety. And anxiety, because we like to avoid anxiety, we oftentimes will procrastinate about making a change or making a decision in our lives because we don't like to be anxious. As a person gets stuck, though, in this ambivalent stage, continually procrastinating about making a decision, this oftentimes is mistaken on the part of the counselor for resistance. Now, in motivational interviewing, we don't talk much about resistance anymore. We don't use that word. What is thought of as resistance, or what used to be thought of as resistance, is to a great extent simply ambivalence. Ambivalence is actually a natural condition of being unsure about making a change. It's a normal consequence about thinking about the pros and the cons of making a change. When people get stuck here, though, and change doesn't happen as quickly as the counselor thinks it should, it could look like the client is being resistant. So how does motivational interviewing help? Well, motivational interviewing helps by resolving this ambivalence and helping the person move towards healthy behavior change. It also helps by eliciting a person's own motivation to change, eliciting their own arguments for making a change in a healthy direction. So what are some of the underlying concepts of motivational interviewing? Well, the first one is the spirit of motivational interviewing, and this is described by 4 words. The first word is partnership, which refers to the fact that in motivational interviewing, the counselor and the client work collaboratively together, and the counselor avoids the expert role. The second word is acceptance, and this refers to the fact that the client that the counselor respects the client's autonomy, their irrevocable right to make decisions about their own lives, their potential, their strengths, and their perspective. We try to see the world through the client's perspective. Compassion refers to the fact that we keep the client's best interest in mind. And the last word is evocation, which refers to the idea that the best notions, the best ideas about change come from the client. Those are the ones that the client is going to act on much more readily than ideas that come from the counselor. So in order to do motivational interviewing, there are 4 skills that are necessary to master. These core skills are open questions, affirmations, reflections, and summaries. And these are nothing new to motivational interviewing or nothing unique to motivational interviewing. These are basic counseling skills that people have learned if they take a basic counseling class. Now, if you take the first letter of each one of these skills, it spells out the word ORS, and we use that acronym sometimes to refer to the 4 skills. We say that we are using our ORS skills. So here's some examples of some of the ORS skills. Open questions are questions, of course, that call for more than a yes or no answer. So this question up there, are you in pain, is not an open question, it's a closed question. A more skillful open question would be something like, how do you feel? How much alcohol do you drink a day is a closed question. That could be changed to, what role does alcohol play in your life? An open question. Don't you want to move to a safer place? Calls pretty much for a yes or no answer. What are the advantages that you see in moving to a safer place is an open question that calls for more of a discussion. In motivational interviewing, we try to ask more open questions than closed questions. We do this in order to encourage the client to talk about what's on his or her mind. rather than questioning the client based on what's on the counselor's mind or based on the counselor's agenda. The second skill is the skill of affirmations. Now, affirmations are simply statements about anything positive that the counselor notices about the client. Awards, attempts, achievements, accomplishments, prior successes, anything that we can point out to the client. Here's some examples of affirmations. You really care a lot about your family. This is hard work you're doing. You were successful in changing in the past. It took a lot of courage coming in today knowing that you had a dirty urinalysis. These can all be examples of affirmations. Now, we use affirmations in motivational interviewing to build a sense of self-confidence or a sense of self-efficacy. The third skill is maybe the most important skill in motivational interviewing, or the most important of the 4 core skills at any rate, and that's the skill of reflective listening. Reflections are simply understanding what the client is thinking and feeling and then saying it back to the client. Reflections are statements, not questions. Here's some examples of reflections. This is a person coming in to talk about post-traumatic stress disorder to a counselor, and he might say something like, I don't think that I have post-traumatic stress disorder. So a reflection might be, you're not sure about the diagnosis of PTSD. I've been this way for so long, I think it's just my personality. So all of this seems normal to you. Well, I don't like the road rage or getting angry with my wife. Road rage and anger at your wife are a couple of things you'd like to change. So you see that there are no questions there. Those are all reflections. Now, we use reflections in motivational interviewing to convey empathy and understanding, and especially to be able to start to see the world through our client's eyes. The fourth skill is summarizing, and summaries are simply long reflections of more than one client statement. Here's a woman thinking about moving to a retirement home or senior housing, something like that. And she's in the ambivalence stage, and she's making arguments for both moving and not moving at the same time. So she might say something like, I don't want to move. I like my house. I've been there for a long time. I'm worried about falling, though. I'm a bit unsteady on my feet these days. But I'd have to change doctors, and that would be a hassle for me. But if I move, maybe I could move closer to my grandchildren. I might be able to see my grandchildren more often, and I might feel safer in senior housing. So there's lots of different ways that you can respond to these statements that the woman is making, but if you wanted to summarize, the summary might go something like this. If I understand you correctly, you've been thinking of moving to senior housing. There's a downside in that you'd have to find new doctors and it would be unfamiliar. You also think you'd be safer in senior housing and could be closer to your grandchildren. And there's a number of different uses for summaries in motivational interviewing. The most important maybe is that summaries provide an opportunity for the counselor to become strategic and guide the client toward healthy behavior change by selectively summarizing the client's own reasons for change. Now, in motivational interviewing, there are 4 processes. There's engaging, focusing, evoking, and planning. And these 4 processes are somewhat sequential in nature, and that you have to engage your client before you can focus on a particular topic or behavior to change. You need to focus on that topic before you can evoke motivation. Then you have to have motivation before you can do any planning. So let's look at each one of these in a little bit more detail. Engaging is defined as the process of establishing a trusting and mutually respectful relationship. Now, this isn't unique or exclusive to the practice of motivational interviewing, but it just makes sense that you need some connection with your client before you can even begin to talk about the client changing their behavior. So other words that you may be more familiar with are attuning to your client, aligning with your client, joining with your client, establishing a therapeutic relationship, connecting with your client. All of these kinds of things refer to the same process in motivational interviewing. It's the process of engaging. Now, in motivational interviewing, it's just as important to know what not to do, what to avoid, as it is to know what to do. And nowhere is this more important than in the first process of motivational interviewing, the process of engaging. One of the things that you want to avoid then is the assessment trap, or assessing your client. Asking a whole bunch of questions right off the bat is off-putting. Your client is not really going to be engaged with you if that's all that you're doing is just asking a bunch of questions, and all they have to do is just sit there and answer question after question. That's not engaging to your client. So you want to avoid assessing your client right off the bat. Another thing that you want to avoid is telling your client how to fix their problem. So if you make a quick diagnosis, if the counselor makes a quick diagnosis and then offers a solution, this also is not going to be engaging. So you want to avoid telling your client how to fix their problem. A power differential is something else that may turn your client off in terms of the establishing a useful relationship. If you come across as some authority figure, for example, sometimes people don't really like that, and that may interfere with the engaging process. Labeling is something else that also may interfere, especially if you insist that the client accept the label before they can be helped in any way. So all of those are ways that that you can interfere with the engaging process and things that you want to avoid. So what is engaging? Well, anything that helps the client feel welcome, comfortable, understood. If you exceed your client's expectations, if your client feels that she and you have mutual goals, or if the client leaves feeling hopeful, then you've engaged your client in the process. Now, there's a number of different ways that you can do these kinds of things. For example, helping them feel welcome, just shaking their hand, using their name, pronouncing it correctly, these kinds of things. But one of the most important things is for a client to feel understood. The second process in motivational interviewing is focusing. Focusing is defined as an ongoing process of seeking and maintaining direction. Now, focusing involves setting an agenda or agreeing on an agenda. We set this agenda while considering the client's goals and priorities, as well as the counselor's goals and priorities, as well as the agency's goals and priorities, for example. And the whole purpose is an effort to create a clear direction for ultimately developing a change plan. So how the counselor accomplishes this is, again, with the use of the 4 basic OR skills and the skillful use of listening carefully to your client. The third process in motivational interviewing is evoking. And evoking is defined as eliciting a client's own motivation for change. What you're evoking here really is change talk. So what is change talk? Well, change talk is defined as client speech that favors movement in the direction of change. Any kind of conversation that your client is giving you, any kind of statements about I want to change, I wish I could, the reasons are I will, I can, it would solve these problems, and so forth, that's all change talk. Well, in motivational interviewing, we pay a great deal of attention to change talk. When we get it, we reinforce it, we encourage it, we try to get more change talk, because we know that the more a client engages in change talk, the more that they argue for change themselves, the more likely it is that they're going to change their behavior. So if we're not getting much change talk, then we want to do some things to encourage that, one of which is that you can just ask questions that would generate change talk. So here's some examples of a few questions that you could use to generate some change talk. Why do you want to make a change? What are the reasons, from your point of view, to make a change? What would some of the benefits be as far as you're concerned? How might you go about making the change if you wanted to be successful? How might you go about doing it? And what would be your first step, or what would be your next step, or what options do you see yourself having? So all of these would generate some change talk. The fourth and final process of motivational interviewing is the planning process. And planning is defined as developing a specific change plan that the client agrees to and is willing to implement. In using the 4 basic skills, the OR skills, the skillful motivational interviewing counselor has already engaged the client, focused on a particular topic, elicited some change talk, and within that change talk there are not only reasons that the client sees for making the change and benefits that would accrue if they were to make the change, but also ways that the client could make the change and be successful at that. And these are important to pay attention to during those phases or those processes of motivational interviewing, so that when it comes to the planning phase, then it's just a process of going from a general concept to developing a specific plan. And the plan needs to be a SMART plan. It needs to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timed. And once you get a plan that is SMART, then that would be the end of motivational interviewing. So that's a brief introduction to motivational interviewing in a nutshell, so to speak. So I hope it's been useful to you and helpful. If you'd like further information, you're welcome to visit my website, www.motivationalinterviewingonline.com. And until next time we meet, I wish you joy and success in your work and peace and happiness in your life. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.
Hi, Kyle. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. Not doing too bad. How are you, Dr. Grande?
Not bad, thanks for asking. What brings you in?
So my girlfriend saw your ad in the paper, and she saw, like, out of some of the things that you work on, one of them is smoking cessation.
Mm-hmm.
And it bothers her that I smoke. So she has been nagging me for, like, weeks to come in and talk to you. So I figured I would just kind of come in just so she would stop bugging me about it.
So you came into therapy today because your girlfriend pressured you?
Yeah, I mean, it's easier for me. Like, if I come in here and talk to you, like, I can spend like 45 minutes with you compared to hours of her nagging me through the week. So
you weighed the cost benefit and decided to come in?
yeah, I mean, it's covered by insurance. It's just 45 minutes of my time. But
And what she would like you to do, and this is her goal, not yours, would be to stop smoking.
yeah,
Tell me what your goal is.
I mean, I don't really have one. Like, I don't think smoking's that bad. Well, I mean, I don't know. Smoking could be bad, but like I don't know. It doesn't. It's never bothered me. Like I don't know. It's like I really don't have any goals to come in besides just having her stop bugging me.
So do you have a goal of quitting smoking?
No, oh, no, not at all. No, there's, I don't know. There's like so many good things about smoking. Like what really got me into it was I smoke a lot at work because it gives me like one-on-one time with the boss.
Mm-hmm.
So like the fact that I can get that time with my boss is, I mean, completely worth it.
Can you tell me about some of the other good things about smoking?
I don't. It's just like it's how I meet people. So, like if I'll have cigarettes on me, but like I don't have a lighter, and that kind of like keeps me from finishing off a pack. Because I could finish off a pack a day, but if I don't have a lighter, then like I carry the cigarettes around with me, and then if I see other people are smoking, like I can go and ask for a light, and that's always kind of like a way in to get to these groups. And I've just met so many different people from smoking. Like I don't know. Yeah.
So smoking, the way you're presenting it, has been a positive thing in your life?
Yeah, I mean, I only do it socially, so that's yeah.
Are there any negative aspects to smoking?
I mean, yeah. I mean, everyone knows smoking is unhealthy, but like I don't smoke a lot. Like I only smoke from time to time, and it's mostly just on the weekends. So it's like I don't know. Occasionally, like if I smoke over the weekends, I might have like a cough, maybe like a heavy cough on Mondays, Tuesdays, but I mean it's gone by Wednesday, so it's not really that big of a deal.
So you don't seem like you're too worried about the negative aspects.
No, I mean like obviously it's unhealthy, but like one of the things I'm trying to do in my life now is get out there and meet new people, and like the benefit of being able to do that smoking is better than like giving it up for health reasons, I think.
So let me ask you a question. I want you to give me a response between 1 and 10. Right? This is called scaling. And it's to do with the importance of stopping smoking. Right? So 1 would be it's not important to you, and 10 would be it's extremely important to you. Where do you think you'd put that number?
I don't know. Maybe like a 2. Like, it'd be cool to get rid of the cough on Mondays, but getting rid of that is not worth everything else I get from smoking.
Right, so not particularly important.
No.
Right. Now, let me ask you the same question, except instead of importance, how confident, we're talking about confidence, how confident are you that you could quit smoking? On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being not confident at all, and 10 being extremely confident.
I'd say probably like a 8 or a 9. Like, I could give it up. Actually, I gave it up recently, like for like a month, and I didn't even crave it. But eventually, like, just seeing all my friends go out smoking, like, I missed that, so I just started up again. But I don't know, if I really wanted to give it up for good, I'm sure I could.
So stopping smoking is not important to you, but you're fairly confident you could if you decided you would.
Yeah.
So, based on kind of where you are in terms of, it doesn't seem like you're interested in stopping smoking, what would be a goal? I mean, how could we spend this time so that it would be productive?
I don't know. Like, I guess it would help to be able to, like, explain to my girlfriend the stuff that I get from smoking, and like you kind of seem like you get it. So, like, I don't know, maybe figure out ways to, like, explain to her the things that I get from smoking, to, like, I don't know, just kind of help her, like, realize why I do it, other than just to kill myself.
So to help her to understand why the smoking works for you.
Yeah.
So that's one goal. Are there any other goals you could think of? I mean, you came in part because, well, it appeared like you came in completely because your girlfriend pressured you.
Yeah.
So any other relational goals you might want to work on there?
Well, I don't know. We haven't really been, like, we've been fighting a lot because of the smoking.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, like, maybe figuring out ways, I don't know, like, to maybe communicate better, or, like, having, like, good fights in a way. Like, I don't know how to describe that, but, like, having fights that are productive, like, that just don't always end, like, with us just, like, going our separate ways, or, like, one of us leaving the house. But, like, I guess being able to, like, wrap up a fight so it doesn't last for, like, days.
So productive communication and productive arguments.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
All right. So one goal would be to illustrate clearly the advantages of smoking to your girlfriend.
Right.
So she understands how important it is to you.
Yeah.
Because it does seem like it's really important to you. But another would be to work on your relational style, so that you can end an argument and feel like you're not at a stalemate.
Right. Yeah, I think that'd be cool.
All right. Well, you want to make those the goals that we work on, so that we can spend this time in productive fashion?
Yeah, I could deal with that. It's kind of like killing 2 birds with 1 stone.
Does that make sense to you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, that's what we'll do. So, what I'd like you to do, I'll see you again in about a week.
Right.
Right. So, if you could reflect on some of these changes that you think you can make with this relationship, what you could do in the relationship to be a more effective communicator. Because a lot of this revolves around communication, right?
Yeah.
Communicating the advantages of smoking, but also communicating in the arguing, so that you have a productive end to these arguments.
Right.
So really more moving from arguments to collegial conversations to have a positive result.
Yeah, that would be cool if we could do that.
Okay. So if you could work on kind of thinking that through, and then next time we meet, we'll talk about those different goals and maybe ways to make some small changes in that relationship to meet those goals.
Right. All right. Sounds good.
All right. Thanks for coming in, Kyle.
Yeah, thank you.